Hi, everybody. My name is Reamey Belski. I am with Crossover Doula Services. We are an end-of-life support and planning company here in the Richmond area. And I am a certified death doula. And I'm here today to share some questions, some frequently asked questions that I get, and some just information about what I see at end of life, and to answer these questions that came in from friends who wanted to know very specific things about what I do. And that's why we're here today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a little PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to go through that. We're going to answer some questions at the end. If you have any questions that aren't answered during this recording today, I would love for you to email me and go ahead and ask those and do another one later. All right, so give me just a second and we will go ahead and share the screen. All right, so let me get you over here. All righty. All right, cool. So like we were saying, I'm with Crossover Doula Services. I am an end-of-life doula. What I do is provide holistic support for individuals who are navigating death. So let's start out with what is the term? Like, why do we use the term doula? It's a Greek word for a person who serves in a non-medical capacity. A lot of people are familiar with what a birth doula is, and we do a very similar service, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I'm on the other end of things. Instead of helping somebody labor into this world, I am helping them labor out of it. So what is an end-of-life doula? I am a non-medical professional that provides holistic support for the dying and their loved ones before, during, and after death. I am trained in a variety of end-of-life stages, and as a death doula, what I'm really primarily there to do is hold space for people who are navigating this end of life and provide a ton of research, education, and information about the natural dying process. And this is all done to provide comfort and support to the individual who is passing, as well as their family and loved ones. So I get this question all the time, like, what do you actually do? The goal of an end-of-life doula is to come alongside people and meet them where they are. I'm going to meet the family where they are with no judgment, and really journey through them from the point where I meet them until the very, very end. And this journey looks different for every single person. Every family is different. The scenario is different. The family dynamic is different. And, I really tailor my support specifically to meet the needs of that individual and that family. So I don't just, provide X, Y, and Z services each time. They're very, very different. I assess the needs of the family and the individual, and we go from there to really provide a very tailored and individualized plan of care for the entire end of life journey for them. So as a death doula, again, I'm providing companionship and presence. I'm there to logistically support the hospice team. I do a lot of mediation between the family and the caregivers and the hospice team, really helping everyone to have really good communication during this time. And another thing is creating the end of life plan with the family. So people want to have their vigil be very specific. They want their room to be in a specific way, the lighting and sounds. Part of what I'm doing is getting to know this individual so well that I can help them really create and bring about a space that is so peaceful and restful and beautiful, that they really will be very comfortable in the space. So creating that very tailored individual visual planning, setting that sacred space is a really big part of what I'm doing. Providing resources for post-death arrangements and memorials. I love making sure families and individuals have all the resources that they need from the community. So pointing them in the right direction as far as what their burial options are and where to find out more information if they're looking for something that's not as traditional. I can provide them tons of research and resources for all of those things. And then when it comes to like planning memorials, I have a background in event planning, so I love helping people plan their memorials and their services and writing their eulogies and obituaries. I can definitely help with all of those things. But I will say I don't take the place of any funeral director. I'm not a funeral director, so I'm not doing anything in that regard. I leave all of that to the professionals, but I am there to, provide some resources and point the families in the right direction for the desires that they have. And then I perform a lot of life review and legacy projects with families as well. So I think it's really important if somebody wants to leave something behind and have a legacy project that they want to, leave behind and give to their family, I am there to help them create that and bring that about as well. So after people worked with a death doula, oftentimes they, say that they felt like they had enhanced emotional well-being. That's a big, piece of feedback that we get. Decreased rates of medical intervention. There's more family collaboration. There's more collaboration between the hospice team and the family, and then within the family dynamic as well. And overall increased satisfaction at the end of life, which is amazing. That's why we do what we do. So I get this question a lot. We have hospice. Do we also need death doulas? And the answer is yes. Because hospice is working within the guidelines of Medicare, they are held to certain standards and they have a scope of practice, which they do really, really well. But the guidelines don't allow them to spend, let's say, the extra time with families. If the family, requested them to stay all day or, be there around the clock, it's not something that they would be able to do. And that's where a death doula can step in and fill the gap where hospice kind of leaves off, at the end of their scope of practice. The doula is there to, really fill the gap that is needed. Some families want that extra layer of support. So some families, might not need that. And some families are absolutely ready to have somebody, take their hand and walk them through this final journey. So that's why doulas are great at filling the gap and adding that extra layer of support. So who might benefit from hiring a death doula? Primary caregivers are probably the number one people that hire death doulas. Individuals with recent terminal diagnosis. Those individuals who want somebody to kind of guide them through the journey, what they're going to be experiencing, helping somebody navigate getting on hospice and transitioning from treatment to palliative care and then hospice, somebody who's able to just kind of walk with this family and this individual down this path that brings a lot of comfort and support to people. Other people that might hire a doula is a single patient with like limited support or no nearby family. So somebody, if they live in Virginia and the rest of their family is in California, they're just not going to have the same level of support if like they would if a family lived nearby. So a doula can really step in and fill the role of support where somebody might not have that family or that built-in support system. Adult children of the actively dying parent, oftentimes we get hired because the child lives out of state or doesn't have the emotional capacity to be there as much for the parent, and we are able to step in and really provide a lot of support and guidance throughout this time for them. Estranged family members, kind of the same, where if somebody comes to me and says, I don't have the emotional capacity to be there for my mom who's dying, but I still want to be involved and still want to make sure she's taken care of and has that support. Can you kind of take over from there? So that's a situation in which I would very happily kind of take that burden off of the adult child and take over, but also have a lot of communication with the adult child and making sure that they had their questions answered and that they had the updates and they had the information they needed, but they didn't feel, guilty about not being there as much because they've involved me at that time too. So that's kind of another area. I don't get it that often, but that's definitely a big area that I want to make sure people know that I'm available for them, that as well. And then parents of terminally ill children. Those are other clients that would hire a death doula. Okay, so this is another frequently asked question. just how can I pay for services and then receive them. We are self-pay, so it's like any companion service. It's typically self-pay. Sometimes you can get reimbursed through your life insurance policy, um, or if you have a living benefit rider on your life insurance policy, they can prepay out a certain portion, and you can use that, to hire a death doula or for extra care. I serve clients virtually and in person. I'm in the greater Richmond area, but virtually, if somebody's out of state or whatever, I can certainly support them that way as well. So here's another good question, which is what happens during the weeks leading up to death? A lot of things happen. And it's important to know that you might have these things happen to you or your loved one, but these signs also might not be present at all, and that is completely normal. So our body is shut down very systematically, but all the signs might not be present. So some of the ones that could be present though are disorientation, um, your loved one like not knowing where they are or being very confused. They're going to be sleeping a lot. So like as you get closer to death, you start sleeping more and more and more and more and more. So don't be shocked and surprised if they spend the majority of their day asleep. There could be a lot of agitation, which means like they might just be kind of like agitated, but also they could be like physically uncomfortable and be like pulling at their clothes. That often happens. Just they, don't like certain things on them, certain things touching them. They have a problem with like certain fabrics that just kind of like agitated in general. As you get closer to death, your appetite's gonna change and you're gonna start not eating as much, and then eventually you're going to lose your appetite and stop completely altogether, or you could lose the ability to swallow, which is another indication that your body no longer needs fuel and it no longer needs food, and it's very natural to have this happen. So families will often get really um, really anxious when their loved one stops eating, but I like to remind people that it's very, very normal and that's natural and that's what your body's supposed to be doing. It no longer needs the fuel, the food. It's slowly shutting down. So it's very normal. And then there's blood pressure changes and skin color changes and body temperature changes as well. And those are all might be things that you experience as well. So what happens during the active dying phase, like those last like day or two when you're actively dying, the loved one's going to go into a deep sleep and you're not going to be able to wake them up. They're going to be no longer taking food or water at all. So whereas like the previous couple weeks, their appetite just diminished, now it's going to be gone. There's going to be changes in skin color, loss of bowel control, hallucinations, noisy breathing. So I know some people call it the death rattle. I really don't like that term, but what's happening there is there are secretions that are like collecting in the back of the throat, and it's not causing them pain or anything. And when it happens to us, we can very easily just kind of clear our throat, and you don't have the energy or the muscles to do that anymore. So that's why it builds up and will create the noisy breathing. But it's not like fluid in their lungs, like they're not suffocating, they're not it's not painful for them. So it's important to know that it's not causing them pain. And if you turn them over, and your doula can help you like turn your loved one over to get that to kind of like settle and to go away for a little while. So just repositioning the person who's dying to help them like not have that noisy breathing anymore is certainly something we can do. And then I want to talk about hallucinations, because a lot of people get really concerned when their loved one starts seeing somebody who's in the room. They're saying they're in the room, but we can't see them. I believe that they truly do see the person that they're talking to or that they're reaching out for. So yes, hallucinations are very, very common. They could be talking to somebody that maybe has been a loved one of theirs that's died, a long time ago. Maybe they've come back to get them and help them, transition from this world into the next. So hallucinations are very, very common. And then the strong grasp reflex is another thing that'll happen as well. And then the surge of energy. So some people will be sleeping in their deep sleep for a long time, and then they'll suddenly wake up and they'll talk and they'll ask for food and they'll eat. And some families get really excited because they think that means their loved one's recovering, but really it's just this surge of energy that's can be such a wonderful gift if your loved one does have that, and you can have, another, chance to have another conversation with them or just tell them how much you love them. Not everyone experiences that, so it's very important not to bank on that happening. It could be something that your loved one experiences. It could also be something that doesn't happen at all. There's really no way to tell. But either way, it's normal. It's normal to not have it, and it's normal to have it. All right, so those are the basic questions that I wanted to go over today. This is all the information that you can find me online at. And I did have a couple of other very specific ones too. Somebody who reached out and they wanted to know about a couple of very specific situations for them. So I'm going to read you those questions and then we're going to talk about those. So one of the other questions I got was, how would somebody proceed in making end-of-life arrangements if they do not wish their biological family to be made aware of their death? So this is a great question. It's a tricky question, but it's a good question. So how would you go making end-of-life arrangements? This person said that they wanted to be cremated, and when you get cremated, legally, the cremation company has to have the next of kin, the legal next of kin, sign off on the cremation before they do that. If they don't have that happen, there can be legal ramifications if the company doesn't have the next of kin sign off on that. If this person doesn't want the next of kin to know, they could put into place a form called um, a funeral designee. They would need to fill out a form called a funeral designee form and have it notarized, basically explaining what they want to have happen. It's saying that they're appointing a certain individual to carry out these wishes. These are their wishes to be cremated. And then I would also suggest that they prepay a cremation company for the cremation, so there's no issue with the financial status at the end once they pass away. So I would have them fill out the form, pay for the cremation, communicate this with the funeral designee so that they have an understanding of the situation. Should the biological family somehow get involved at the end after they've died. And that's kind of all you can do, to have those in place, pay for it. The other, yeah, that's tricky because the cremation company's gonna want to try to find the next of kin. And oftentimes, if somebody passes away, the protocol is to have somebody come and pronounce the body and pronounce like the time of death. So if it's like a police officer or something, they're gonna look into like trying to find the next of kin. That's their job, is trying to track down. So I don't know if for sure you would be able to not let your biological family know, but there's certainly some things you can put in place to have happen, so that they don't get a say in what's going on. The other question I got was, what does an individual need to know or do in advance if they live alone and anticipate being alone when they die? That's also a really good question. What do they need to do? I would suggest a couple of things. I would suggest having all of your documentation in one place. It's really easy to find. So should somebody come into your home and find you dead, that they would then be able to look around and find maybe a binder or a folder or something on the refrigerator that's like, hey, this is information you need if I'm dead. And have your funeral information there and have your designee information there so that they can contact somebody. That's important. And then they also see that you had your funeral wishes, which were, you wanted a service or you didn't want a service, or you wanted to be cremated and that was it. So have something for them to go by that's really readily available. I think that's key. They need to be able to find this information or they're not going to be able to fulfill any of your wishes. The other thing I would do if I knew I was, going to be dying soon and I lived alone, I would have kind of a safety protocol, I guess. I would set something up that's with another individual where they can somehow check on me, whether that's, a phone call or a text, and they wait for my reply, something that like allows them to know that I'm still alive. And then should I not respond to that text or pick up their phone call or whatever, they would know like I need to go check on her and see if she's still alive. And then they could one check on me, find me before it's been like weeks that my body's been there. And also if I have any pets, they would be able to like come and take care of the pets as well. So I would definitely, if you are living alone and you anticipate being alone when you die, have something set up where you know that eventually this neighbor is going to come check on you. Once a week they stop by to see, if you've checked your mail or moved your car, or, you can wave at them or whatever. Maybe you have somebody you text regularly and that they would be alerted if they didn't get that text from you. So have somebody come find you before it's been like a long time, and then also be able to check on your pets if you have pets. Um, let's see, that was okay. And then I have one other little question that somebody asked, which was, do you help families after the loved ones died? That's another great question. And the answer is yes, I do. I'll continue to work with the family. I want to make sure that they feel really solid and stable before I say goodbye to them. So I'll continue to work with the family if I've been there, for a couple of weeks, which is normally the case. Like somebody will call me a couple of weeks, before their loved one dies, and I can work with them for a couple of weeks, help them, go through the vigil and the post-death process and plan. And then if they want me to continue to work with that family, I will continue to show up and work with them. And that looks very different for different families, depending on like what the need is. But yes, I continue to provide the emotional, and logistical support for the families after their loved ones died. So those were all of the questions I had for today that I wanted to answer for you. I really appreciate you guys listening to this. Please share, as much as you would like with your friends. And this is all of the ways that you can find me. Again, my name is Reamey Belski. I'm with Crossover Doula Services. I'm pretty easy to find online, and I do have my Instagram handle down there as well as my email if you have any further questions. So you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much. And let me know if you have any more questions for the future. Thank you.